"If we lose this client," Preston whispered in my ear, "you will go back to translating cheap takeout menus in the slums." I did not look at him or show any weakness, keeping my focus entirely on the silent executive across the polished mahogany table. The future of our entire firm rested on the next words that came out of my mouth. For nearly a year, I had sacrificed my sleep and my personal life to secure this milestone multi-million-dollar expansion contract for Apex Vanguard. The corporate leadership team believed that flashy buzzwords and sheer arrogance could bypass decades of cultural respect, but I knew better. My name is Victoria, and I was about to teach my superior a brutal lesson about power. The foreign executives from Jade Crest Holdings sat in perfect alignment, completely unimpressed by the loud tech presentation Preston had just forced upon them. He always assumed that dominance was achieved by speaking over others, while I understood that silence was the ultimate strategic weapon. I had meticulously crafted every single clause of this partnership, building a deep foundation of trust. Right in the middle of our tense negotiation, Preston leaned forward and made a sudden announcement that completely shattered the room. He told the client that I would no longer be representing the company because my position was being permanently eliminated. He called it a strategic transition, smiling as if he had just won a prize while erasing my life work. The room went completely cold as the lead client executive, Mr. Chen, paused mid-sentence and stared directly at me with absolute confusion. Preston refused to look at me, continuing to pitch his new vision to the client as if I had already vanished from the room. My mind remained calm, replaced by a freezing determination to survive this corporate ambush. Preston expected me to break down or leave the room in tears, but he did not realize that I had already initiated my own backup plans weeks ago. I requested a brief recess to allow both parties to process the sudden structural adjustments within Apex Vanguard. As the client executive stood up, I noticed a very specific look of deep dissatisfaction in their eyes. Once we were alone, Preston laughed and told me that my services as a mere cultural liaison were no longer required by the firm. He believed that he had successfully hijacked the deal of the century to solidify his own executive promotion. Little did he know, he had just severed the only bridge keeping this fragile contract from falling apart. When the meeting resumed, Mr. Chen bypassed Preston entirely and addressed me directly in flawless Mandarin, asking about my future business ventures. I looked straight into his eyes and calmly responded that I was officially launching my own independent consulting practice immediately. The faces of the foreign delegation shifted from polite hesitation to immediate corporate interest. Before Preston could even process what was happening, Mr. Chen stood up and formally requested that the representatives of Apex Vanguard vacate the premises. My former boss scrambled to protest, but the authority in the room had completely shifted away from his control. He was forced to step outside, leaving me alone with the largest clients in our industry. I immediately pulled out a clean contract draft from my briefcase, completely devoid of any company logos or corporate branding. I offered Jade Crest Holdings the exact same operational terms, but under my own newly established entity, requesting a 10% success fee. Mr. Chen smiled for the first time all week and eagerly reached for his pen. Over the next 2 hours, we finalized a massive logistics agreement that effectively quadrupled the financial scope of the original proposal. We spoke the true language of business, bypassing the cheap marketing gimmicks that Preston had relied on for months. By the time the meeting concluded, I had successfully secured my financial independence and built an empire. The following morning, Apex Vanguard issued a generic public statement thanking me for my past contributions while claiming they remained committed to international excellence. Meanwhile, the reality of their situation was far more grim as their client communication channels collapsed into complete silence. They did not realize that their entire portfolio was slowly disintegrating from the inside out. What Preston and the legal team did not realize was that my departure paperwork had never been properly finalized due to his own administrative laziness. I had carefully saved every single piece of correspondence proving that I was never bound by any non-compete clause or restrictive covenant. I was completely free to legally acquire every single account they possessed. Within days, the stock value of Apex Vanguard suffered a massive decline as prominent investors began discovering the massive leadership failure. A major business publication released a devastating front-page expose detailing the corporate incompetence and the brilliant maneuver that allowed me to outsmart them. The executive board immediately launched an internal investigation into the behavior of Preston. My former supervisor was quickly placed on administrative leave while facing intense scrutiny from the primary shareholders of the company. He tried to blame me for corporate sabotage, but the documentation I provided to the board proved his own arrogance caused the downfall. The very trap he built for my destruction had snapped shut on his own career. Now, I sit in my new high-rise office overlooking the beautiful city skyline, listening to the peaceful silence of true success. I no longer have to diminish my intellect or allow insecure managers to take credit for my hard work. True value does not come from a corporate title or a loud voice in a crowded room. Real power belongs to those who understand the value of respect, strategy, and absolute preparation in the face of betrayal. I stood my ground, claimed my worth, and transformed a public humiliation into the ultimate professional victory. The next chapter of my life has officially begun, and I am writing the rules on my own terms.